All right. So, welcome to the Brand Identity Design podcast. My name is Jason. I'm your host for today's show. Why we are actually doing this live podcast, I want to actually, say a belated Valentine's Day to each and everyone who is listening to this conversation. I hope you guys had fun yesterday. You were able to show this love and support to your family, friends, or your loved ones, whoever is out there. So, we are currently doing a series from the past few seasons. It's called as the dark side of entrepreneurship. Nothing really dark and scary about it. The aim of the show is to educate entrepreneurs about business, recommend strategies on how to deal with adversities, and I want to actually get interesting guests who can speak about interesting topics, so that you have a plethora of information out there as to how you can conduct and run your own business. So I interview these high level business executives like the one which you see next to me on Clubhouse. On LinkedIn you would not be able to see this profile, but her name is Claudia Esquer. Her website details are listed on the event comments, and you should be able to find all those interesting information. Get on a call with her and try to understand the business of making movies. All right, so I assure you, this is not going to be just a boring business talk show. We will be injecting, or we will be trying to inject, a healthy dose of humor and personality to the mix. You're also listening to Spotify's top 30% most followed business podcast in the business podcast in the business category globally. My podcast is also heard in over 23 countries, and it's also on the top 5% of the most shared business podcasts globally as well. So sit back, relax, and get ready to laugh and learn with us. So let's actually let me give you a heads up on today's conversation. So we are going to be speaking about how to make a movie, and Claudia is going to take us through the steps of bringing a story to life on the big screen, including script development, securing funding, assembling the cast and crew, distribution, navigating the challenges of film, post production work, and stuff like that. So this podcast is actually ideal for aspiring filmmakers or simply movie enthusiasts. I hope I'm pronouncing that right. But this podcast will surely give you valuable insights and inspiration. So thank you so much for making this show happen. Your listeners, you are the reason why I do these shows regularly on LinkedIn. So let's actually, let me give you a heads up on who Claudia is. So Claudia is a film and TV producer, director, and writer. She's also the founder of ReelSpot Films. Claudia has done production work for CBS, NBC, and We TV. She's also a digital marketer who specializes in visual storytelling through films, TV shows, videos, radios, and strategic product placements. The last season, I think on season 2, we have done a very exclusive episode which speaks about product placement which happens in movies, and that was a phenomenal show. I highly recommend you guys to actually go and check it out on Spotify. So please welcome the very awesome Claudia Esquer to our podcast. Welcome, Claudia. Welcome.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Jason. I'm so glad and happy to be here. Thank you so much for having me on your podcast. And it's really an honor to be and have the opportunity to share thoughts and experiences around this amazing topic of how to make movies. I really look forward for this conversation, and I really hope that I can provide, some inspiration and some insights around the movie making process.
Absolutely. This is going to be a fun conversation. So sit tight, guys. We're going to deep dive into this topic right away. Thank you so much. It's an absolute honor having you once again on my podcast. The last episode was kick ass. It's still on the top 10, the product placement one. So thank you so much for making that happen. It takes a lot of effort for the content to really work, especially when it's a podcast. So that was pretty cool and spectacular of you. So let's actually get into our conversation. Before we understand and dissect the film production, the whole thing, Okay, could you tell my audience what made you so interested in camera, gadgets, cables, and stuff like that? It's not something which I have seen many women. Not that they are not capable of doing it, but what made you so interested in these high tech gadgets, technology, and other stuff, and into getting into movies also? If you get my question.
Yes, yes, thank you so much, Jason. I think like it just came from a hybrid, right? I think like the curiosity and the love for stories. And I also love the technology side of it and understanding how things work. Um, I feel like I had, and I think like I mentioned this before, I had an amazing parents who I can give the thanks to as well. They didn't tell me what was one right one a specific box that you have to fit in. I think like based on curiosity, I was able to play with many things that might not consider, especially girl, um, maybe toys or it was just part of the curiosity. So if I wanted to see something that it was inside and how it works, I would definitely be encouraged to do it and be allowed to. And I think like that just set that part of me that wanted to understand things on another level and use technology to create these amazing stories. And I was always fascinated about that process as well. I think my first memory actually comes from a theater, right? So I think like that's really embedded in me, and that's where it comes, that amazing um, passion, that many people has and we have in common, and just tell movies and tell stories.
Absolutely, absolutely. Isn't that phenomenal, guys? You have no idea that we actually have conversations about cables and wires and cameras and gadgets. That's the conversation she has with me whenever I call her on weekends. Just to ask about how things are. Isn't that crazy? So, okay, so you are the only person I have come across who actually speaks about cables, gadgets, technology, and all, and that is super, super cool. Let's deep dive into this conversation now. And I appreciate the background story. And I love the fact that you started off from theater and it has a huge inspiration. That's super, super cool. Now, could you help the audience dissect this and help us understand what are the different stages to a film production? Let's break it down into categories and maybe you can give us an overview of those categories.
Yes, of course. Well, to make a movie, you need to go through different stages. And they will vary it, in time consuming or complexity depending on the project, and especially how big the project is. And if it's a project that needs a lot of special effects and CGI, or it's something that is more focused on the story and the characters as it is. So once you have that, you will go to different stages, and we can talk about five main stages. We have the development process, we have the pre-production process, we have the production, post-production, and distribution. And we can basically, as a norm, point that like that. So in the development process is really important because this is the first stage. So here is where you go from the story, from this mere idea, and actually create that script that you need to be developed. And then you will go to involve or to switch from writing and rewriting the script and securing funding, and you will need to obtain all the rights, all the permissions, all the things that will help you to propel that story, that idea, into the next phase. That is when you already have those things secure, especially funding, because with that is where everything begins to take, and to be more serious about. And then you go into the pre-production process or stage where you actually begin to prepare.
Okay, go
So
slow, go slow, go
this
slow.
is,
Wow, this is
oh,
this is like loaded with too many things. I can't like. Okay, okay. So let me just backtrack now. So you said there are 5 stages, if I'm getting that right. 5 stages primarily involved in film production. Okay, so at some point, due to the size, you said due to the size and complexity of the projects, there could be more than 5 components. But typically, you said a movie has 5. If I'm not mistaken, I heard you say development. Second, I think you spoke about some pre-production something. Third was that production or I think it was production. Third one, right?
yes, production,
And
yes.
and fourth one
After
was
the pre-production,
post
you just
production.
go
Okay,
into full,
post
yes.
production, and the last one is distribution. So guys, once again, development is the first stage, pre-production second stage, production is third stage, fourth is post production, and fifth is distribution. So currently, let's emphasize on development again. So development is basically the first stage, right? So could you just repeat that again so that we go step by step?
Yes, of course, more than happy. I know that it could be a lot of information
Yeah, I know the
at
reason why you
once.
were saying it
Yes.
so flawlessly is because you kind of do this day in and day out. For me, if you ask me, I'm like new to this whole thing, and I'm sure many people who are listening is also new. So let's help them out understand it. So development stage, let's hear that again.
Wonderful. So, in the development is where everything begins. You just goes cater, nurture the idea, and every story begins with an idea, right? So you are based on that idea, you will create your script, and it depends who you are in this process because you could be the director, you could be the producer, you could be the writer. So it matters who you are in this process and where you will be entering in this process. So once you have that script secure, you have that based on that concept that you actually had for the film, if you are the producer actually, then you will go and find that funding, right? So you need money, you need the resources to actually make this endeavor, this entrepreneur, that this enterprise, right? Because a movie is an enterprise, to happen. And then you need to move on into obtaining rights, permits, all the legal involved side of things so you can propel and move forward to the next stages.
Okay, okay, that makes sense. So that's the first stage. You develop the script and the idea. So basically, that's where you conceptualize everything. And then you get into rights, permissions, script, securing funding, stuff like that. That makes sense to me. Second stage, you said was pre-production. So help us understand what is pre-production.
So this stage is very crucial. So you have to prepare everything that it will go on production. So on this stage you have to begin the actual filming process. And I would say begin because this is the stage when you secure location, when you talk about finding the right crew for your movie, where you begin to create the storyboards, the mood boards, you begin to do a scouting, like all the amazing things prior to make that production process so as smooth as possible, because you will always encounter things. But that's why pre-production is so crucial for this process, because you have to envision everything before it happens, and you also have to do a lot of prepared and be prepared for ABC and the things that can go wrong in the production, so you have like the way to move around things and to take the right decisions once those things
Mm.
happen.
Interesting. Okay, this is pretty self explanatory. So, according to you, pre production is a very crucial stage because you're arranging all the cast, the crew, hiring the right people, identifying the locations where to shoot. What is storyboard exactly, Claudia?
So storyboards is actually the images. You do rough kind of concepts, let's say, on how you want that story to be told. and to be seen once you go to production. So that's a great tool because now you can discuss those things with your DP, with actually is your director of photography. You can use it also for production basis because they would know how you want to tell the story. And it's a really really nice way of knowing how how will be the flow of the story, so you can actually make those. I don't know if you have seen, it's kind of like see comic, comic strips, and in that
Yeah,
sense.
yeah. Okay, so it's
Yes,
like
so
frame by
that's in a
frame,
storyboard.
frame by
Yes,
frame.
frame by frame
Yes.
images.
Okay. Okay.
I
Makes
have
sense.
to say that I'm not that good an artist, but even like stick figures can work. Sometimes when you want to to just talk about framing and what type of how you want to tell the story, what type of frames you want to use, like, and it's really really helpful. It's really
Yeah.
helpful.
Yeah.
You can have like as detail as a beautiful, almost the same thing that you will see on the screen.
Yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. And I think what she's trying to say, guys, is that to help people just visualize the setup, storyboard helps you to accomplish that. I think that's what you're trying to say, because it would be next to impossible to like just say things and explain things so that people would get a hold of it. So by drawing it, you can tell them this is where the setup would be, this is where the table should be, or this is where the actor, or this is where the camera would be, stuff like that. I think that makes sense. But anyway, let's move on. So the third stage you said was production. So could you help us understand what is production exactly? Is it the same as pre-production, or here is there something different going on here?
Oh, this is the exciting part. This is where everything comes to place. And this is actually when you film the movie. So, production is the fun and the exciting part. Now you will begin to actually roll the movie, to do the fun camera settings, to work with your amazing crew, and make this story comes to life. And that's the most unique, tiring process, but also the most rewarding as well.
Okay, so if my guess is right, this is where actually the film it's like coming to life, right? This is where everyone starts shooting and the whole setup starts. This is how you give life to the script, right? In a nutshell.
Exactly.
Okay, okay,
Yes.
I get what you're trying to say.
That's the fun part. Yes.
All right, next stage, post production. I'm guessing, uh, production helps you to capture everything, bring the story to life, and post production, I guess, would be more like giving it finishing touches, like maybe adding music, editing, maybe putting special effects, something like that sort. Is that guess right? Do you think that's what's happening?
You are so on point. Yes. So you will be editing the film. That's where everything comes in place, the score, the sound design, all the special effects. If you have like VFX, all the things that come into place that are necessary for all your audience to actually watch the movie. So that's when the final assemble and the final way of telling that story is actually complete. Because you can say that you have three ways of making a movie. It's like you will make one movie when you actually write the screenplay, right? You do another movie when you actually shoot the movie in the production process, and then you have another movie once you put all the pieces together and you edit edit everything. So that's basically how the process from the beginning movie on the main idea and the actually written story begins, and then when it's final into the editing stage.
Awesome, awesome. Guys, those who are listening on LinkedIn, we have around 18 people listening on LinkedIn. I love my LinkedIn family and community. Please give me a thumbs up if you're finding this information insightful, because we are going to be jumping further and making this even more cooler. So the next and the last stage, I think you spoke about distribution. So could you help us understand what is distribution?
Well, this is the final part, and I would say final because that's when the film is distributed, it's released, you're able to actually watch the film, even if it's through a streaming platforms or home video as before was. All that part of all these years of work will actually be successfully complete when once you get to this stage, to the distribution stage.
All right, all right. That makes sense. So basically, distribution is where things hit the theater or streaming platforms or OTT, or in a form of DVD, stuff like that. That's basically how. Basically the last stage. Would distribution also be the same where movies get premiered like the Cannes, or Cannes? I don't know, the right way of pronouncing that. The film festivals and all. Would distribution be a part of that, or does it come before distribution?
It depends. It can come before because you could actually set that part of going to festivals before the distribution process. It depends on how they handle because some of them will require for you to actually have like couple of um, release the film into X amount of movie theaters, and depending on if it's like a commercial, international part. So it will depend on the requirements from that particular festival. But you can definitely come first, and then you can have like a redistribution side. So usually
Ah,
when yes, so usually when a movie becomes really successful, you could see afterwards that they distributed in more broad way. So you will get international distribution, you will be acquired for other on other countries, and it just comes to a mainstream because they already have that awards, those awards. If they actually get or critical, they can critically leverage that winning process in that particular segment.
makes sense, makes sense. So the reason I highlighted that, guys, because based on my research, I realized that a movie can be launched like twice or released twice. One would be at a film festival, not really an official launch, but they do it because they want to grab people's attention, bring it to the right targeted audience, and could be also released at a later date, which could be maybe months from there or a year from there. Am I right? Which is something lovely. This is not, my research was half accurate when I spoke to Claudia on a pre-call a few days back. That's when she corrected me that it has to release date sometime. So, which was, I was blown away. I was like, I didn't know that. I was thinking that if a movie gets released on a film festival, I thought that was the release date, which is not really the case. All right, all right, all right. Let's deep dive further, guys. If you're enjoying the conversation, please invite a few of your friends to join who are interested in movies. So my next question is that could you give us an overview of the key elements that is included in a pitch or a proposal of a movie? And the reason I'm highlighting about the pitch and the proposal part is because, Claudia, you said something about securing funding, which is a very, very important stage because that makes the movie or breaks the movie. So, could you help us understand like the elements which you need to have in your pitch so that you can get or secure the funding? And I know that you're also personally working on a movie which is expected to be produced by this year as well. So help us understand, and maybe you can give us some relatable examples from how you try to secure your funding and all.
Oh, thank you, Jason. Yes. So this is really important part. So when you want to secure that funding, as you mentioned before, you really need to have that pitch and that binder, right, really in place. Because as I mentioned before, this is a business and you have to treat it like that, especially when you are in a production role, and you are trying to sell your movie. And because of that, you need to have, you need to include several things, right? So you need a summary of the story, which is actually the synopsis. You will need to have like your log line. You will need to have really clearly who is your target audience. It's kind of like marketing piece. So we actually it's taken from it because you're actually, as I said before, you are talking about a business and you have to be really prepared on that. Is art, which I know that my fellows filmmakers, we love that side of it, but we also need to be prepared to be actually that it makes sense when you are looking for funding. And you would need to include on that, your genre, your target audience. You might need to include also other relevant information about who is your crew, what are their previous work, awards, all this type of information that allows you to make that unique film and create this compelling story that can actually attract those potential investors, and also that will usually be so useful as well to secure your cast too, because if you're looking for lead actor, a lead character that might be someone important to that role, that's something that you can also propose and present to them along with the script too.
That is super cool. So, just to make things easy, from what I heard, you said something about log line, and if my guess is right, this is like a description of the story, or the concept, basically. Like a brief. An overview of it, and then you need to have like a summary of the story, and then which is the characters in your film. It also needs to have like a target audience. You said. Okay, and you spoke about cast and crew information about what they have done previously, the projects, experiences, achievements, stuff like that. What else? What else do
Yes.
you need in a pitch?
Oh, yes, so true. So you need to have that unique selling proposition. You have to
Oh, don't
say
tell me.
why your story
So a film
is
is like a
important.
business. I mean, when you said it, it's
Yes,
like a business. I didn't
completely
really
a
believe
business.
it, but okay. How
Yes,
how does this
it
go? Like,
is.
you sit in front of these sharks and you're pitching like, okay, what makes your movie different from others, and how would you respond?
That is the fun part. And I think like sometimes as a filmmaker you might be forgetting that side, as you said, like in front of sharks and just being able to to pitch that story. And it's not just because they are in that particular way, that we know about the show, but it's because there is so many stories out there, there is so many ideas out there, that you have to craft it in a way that you have that unique selling point, that you have that unique story, or that you can tell that story in such a unique way that it will be so attractive to the audience that they are really really invested in it. They see the potential, they see how this movie or how this series can actually impact, because at the end of the day it's revenue, it's how many people will actually watch it, and it's a numbers thing. Whether we like to begin the idea, we are really passionate, we are really creative, we love our stories. You can really feel that your story is like a baby, it's really unique, it's really yours. But in order for that to grow into a bigger experience and to achieve international markets and achieve, streaming platforms, or to be seen around the world, you need to be able to create a really compelling selling and business plan, and this marketing thing as well, because that has to be really connected to what you are creating for. And from then you will go to what is your budget, what is the cost of the production, how do you envision it. And you need to have like those type of information, as we talked before, that you mentioned as well, the cast and the crew, all the people that are involved already in the project at this point or to this point, just having the consideration that these things can change. So if your project is green lighted, let's say, and they are acquiring, because they are production companies or studios or major studios, they might use this story with different cast. They will bring that part of the production process into this idea, and that can change a little bit, but you have to have that reference from the beginning as well. It's really helpful. Marketing and distribution, you have to have a plan. There are many movies that are have been huge in marketing without having too much of a budget. So if I can say an exemplar from mine, for me would be Witch Blur Project, which is an older movie. I don't know if you have seen that movie before. I think it's from 18, in the 90s. And they did something really clever, because they used the marketing, they used the story to actually create ton of curiosity, because when they present the movie, they even use the real actors' names. And what they did was, because it was based on this story and this idea, that it was based on found tape, like found recordings along the way of
Oh, like paranormal
certain.
activity.
Yes, I don't want to spoil it. I will not spoil, but um I have to say that it's really clever, because that brought so much attention that a movie without basically no budget was able to be a huge revenue. And the same thing happened with paranormal as well. So those type of movies are really great on creating that marketing without budget. But even bigger movies, they need marketing. And that's why you will see lead actors talking into press
Oh,
releases,
interviews. Like I see a lot
yes,
of
press
videos.
interviews, yes.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Go ahead. Go ahead. I'm sorry.
Oh, no, 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 go ahead. I think like that's what it makes it interesting.
Yeah. If you've seen a lot of those clips by Kevin Hart and The Rock, being on YouTube channels, saying funny things, interesting and humorous things, playing games, I think they are subtly marketing their movie, because I could see the movie background in the back. In the back, they have these posters and stuff like that, or they might be wearing costumes similar to what they would have been worn during the movie. Right? That's also a subtle way of marketing and distributing and selling your film before it even gets launched. Right?
So true. So true. Everything can help. And this is something what, now that you mentioned The Rock, this is something that we have been a lot of shift through the time, especially later, because social media and social platforms had so much impact into the way movies are made. You have big actors with a big following audience, that they actually are considered to do more movies, because they do have that fan base. They do have people that are already interested on what they are doing and where they are appearing. And I think like that's also important to reflect on it because marketing, and again, as I said before, this is also a business. And from that standpoint, if you are an actor or an actress and or even a filmmaker, you have to consider yourself also to think about on that marketing side to create your own personal brand as well, because that definitely will help you on the other projects, on future projects that you will be taking. And as much as your audience be you know get big and get more relevant, that also will open a lot of doors, and it's really important to take that part under consideration as a marketing, but also as a personal brand, especially if you are beginning and you are really in the first stage of producing your movie or
That
directing your
that makes to
movie. Yes.
that makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering, because it's like a business, because you opened my eyes by saying this is like a business. I thought it's entertainment, but that's not really the case. Do you guys have like a projected financial sheet which you share with the investors? You tell them like, this is the amount of revenue we are expecting first year, second year, third year. These are the different platforms which we plan to distribute. This is the amount of revenue we're going to come from there. I don't know. I'm just guessing. Would you do that too? A projected financial statement for movies. Is that a thing?
Yes, that's the case.
What the
Yes.
hell? I was just
Yes,
Oof, I was
you
just shooting
need those
shit. Like
things.
I
Yes, you need it. You need it because you are actually trying to prove that that your movie can actually generate revenue, can make money, can be seen, And you have to make financial projections based. Usually what you do is that you base them on other similar movies and how well they went. And base, you can also do certain adjustment if your movie is a low budget movie, so you know that is not a huge investment, how much revenue it can bring based on other similar stories. And that's why you can make those type of financial projections and understand where that might go based on that market that is already there, that fan base, that consumers, let's say, and you are able to do those projections. And please don't take out the mind that is entertainment and it's also art, because that's something that really needs to happen, right? I think I like it to see it as a blend, because this is the beauty. You can entertain, you can create something unique, you can do art, you can do an amazing story that is capable of inspiring, of taking you to amazing different universe, and also do the other part, right? But the thing is that to be able to do those things, to be able to create those powered and amazing and inspire and entertaining products as an end, right? As stories, films, you have to be able to found it first. And financials, talking numbers and talking financial financials, and the creative other side, like if you're talking with your DP or other part of the creative crew, you would talk in creative, side. You will talk in art, you will talk in feeling and emotion. You are looking on what your audience wants to feel and where you will take them and what type of experience you will want to live through your story. So one thing that I love about the film industry is that you can actually merge both worlds and create something unique without giving giving each side, and I think like that's the most amazing part of it, of making movies, and what it makes it so, for me this is a particular opinion, but what it makes it so emotional and so incredible. It's like a new idea. And I have to go, if I have to talk about backstage, it also, every time that you're filming a movie, you are beginning a new experience. Like, even though we're talking about all these processes and all these outlines and how it has to be done, yes, we follow this process, but once you create, each project is so different from the other, and that's also the beauty of it.
Awesome, awesome. That was jam packed with so many things. Oh my god. Thank you so much for sharing it. Now let's actually move ahead, because I know we are kind of a little short on time, guys. Today we have to wrap things up before or by 90 minutes. Okay, so I want to get into the funding side a little more, because when we were exchanging notes, you had mentioned that there were seven different mediums of how one can secure funding for a movie. Would you mind taking our audience to each of these mediums, one medium at a time?
Yes, definitely. Well, for to secure funding, you really can get it through different process, and one of the main ones is a studio funding, right? So once you have your idea, that studio that actually takes on this idea and clear that idea, or green light that idea, will provide all the funding for that movie. So the studio becomes responsible for that production process, that marketing process, that distribution of the movie, and they will also, have their revenues from the actual box office when the movie is released.
Give me an example
Um,
of a studio. Like what would be a studio? When you say studio.
Oh, yes, yes. So you have studios as Warner Brothers, you have studios as Disney, you have other small studios as, A24, you have Blumhouse Productions, you have Pixar Studios. So Marvel Studios, there are so many studios.
Okay,
Yes.
okay. I get what you're trying to
So,
say. So,
yes.
I was under the impression these guys are just responsible for production, but that's not really the case. They also fund movies and help you with marketing and distribution, and plus make money off you. I didn't know that. Oh my god, this is interesting.
Yes, yes. So, lately Amazon Studios and all the streaming platforms have become really, really big. Netflix as well, and they are founding their stories too. You have Warner Brothers, that actually is a production company that produce movies like Harry Potter, you know, Matrix, and Dark Knight from Batman. Those type of movies that are iconic. They are really on those studios. If you think about Avengers and Black Panther and Spider Man, you're talking about Marvel Studios. So it's it's a task from the studios because they already have everything. They have all this amazing platform and a structure that allows them to create movies in that way.
Awesome, awesome. That is super cool. So let's deep down further. So that was studio. Or what's the second one?
So the second one comes with, you are not attached to a studio, and now you have to look for independent financing, and that's where we go to mention, as an independent movie or independent producer, because you are not attached to a studio. That's why your movie is financed actually by independent investors, or private equity firms. So these investors, they provide the capital you need for the movie, and obviously they get a share of those profits. But you are doing it aside from the studio.
I would be really shocked if you say that there is pre-seed, seed funding, one, two, those kind of stuff. Does it happen for movies or is it just one?
It can happen, definitely
Are
depending
you
on the status.
serious?
Yes, yes, because sometimes you need a proof of concept, and you can get an independent financing, your movie finance for that particular reel or proof of concept that you want to do, and teaser, something that allows them to prove that that idea or that story is actually doable, and it can have like a great impact. So
Okay.
they actually take it to a focus group, and they do other things to see if that's something that can be good for to create, like especially if those things are something that it will take a lot of money to invest on them. That's something that you can do. Hmm.
Okay, okay. This is pretty interesting. So, independent financing can be angel investors who are just experimenting with the proof of concept, and then later on be added by independent investors or VCs or private equity firms, stuff like that, to make the movie a success and to share profits. That's pretty cool. What's the third one?
Well, the third one is something that has become really helpful, and I think like this gives power to the fan base. And in this age of crowdfunding, right? So, crowdfunding has been really powerful for developing products, but guess what? It's also been powerful to creating and to developing movies. And I think like taking that approach is really great, especially if you're beginning or you have an idea that you really think that it can be proof. And what is more powerful that actually has having that fan base already invest in your movie, in your story, and be with them from the beginning. And that just, I think like that's a wonderful wonderful way to make, even they will give you, a small contributions. And what you can do is like you can send them, the first releases, you can send them specifically items, like let's say things that will be signed for the cast, or they can get like an invitation from a premiere. They can even be producers in the movie. So that goes how you can do this fun for fans and also immerse them into that experience of movie making process with you.
All right. So, I mean, crowdfunding is super cool. I have seen a lot of movies produced that way. I've seen a lot of examples. So, I appreciate you sharing that. So, let's deep dive further. Now, when you exchange notes, this one really shook me. Okay. Government funds movies. Is this accurate? And could you maybe help us understand which movies practically have been launched recently which was funded by government?
Yes, definitely government can fund
I mean, what's
movies.
the benefit? Like, why would they do it? Like, don't you think that money can go in interesting things like welfare, community building, stuff like that? Why would they invest on entertainment?
Oh, sorry, I was muted. I was talking muted, sorry. So, yes, so government funding is because they might feel an alignment with their cultural or artistic goals. And let me tell you, movies are so, so powerful to bring attention to those particular places. So every time something is filmed into a particular place, that it's a movie that actually becomes like a huge a story or a huge hit on the box office, that place becomes a major attraction, you know? So if you think about the story of Hollywood, Hollywood was actually all these touristic, right? Touristic um, input influx, right? It comes from the idea of going to Hollywood because you want to be able to experience that what you see on movies. So that's thinking about that, you can actually use that touristic attraction to be useful for the government to actually attract people to that particular region or that particular stage, or even to create employment, because as we mentioned before, a movie is a business. And actually, when you are doing a business, when you're doing a movie in this case, you're attracting a lot of employment to that particular place. And actually, there is a lot of resources coming to that place because you're attracting people, you're attracting them for a period of time, and that's really an amazing boost for the economy. So it has to, that dividends that it will be paid also for the government, and can be really helpful in many many ways for the region or the area that is going from.
Okay, this is super cool. I appreciate you highlighting this. Could you help us with the remaining ones? What's the next one?
Yes, so you can have tax incentive as well. It can be offered by government too.
Oh
We
shit.
talk about regions. Yes, so every every state has their own tax incentive if they do have that for filming, and they will offer you, tax rebates. They will offer credits. They will give you grants for productions, everything that allows you to bring the attention to that particular area. So that's really, really amazing.
Okay, so tax benefits. That's super cool. What's next?
Well, you mentioned before, the pre-seed money, and now we have pre-sales.
Oh,
And yeah, so this is really interesting because that means that you're actually giving the distribution right for your movie in advance. And this is fun because if you land that particular agreement with a distribution company, that means that they will take care of the movie at the end of the movie completion. So that's really important because that means one of the things, and I will go back, one of the things that are more difficult to do is actually get distribution, because sometimes you focus so much on making the movie but you don't know where it will land, you don't know how it would be distributed, how will reach the audience. And because many of these foundings usually focus on the production side, not many focus on the marketing or distribution side. And that's why sometimes it could be really complicated for filmmakers to actually distribute their movie. So when you do that type of pre-sale, it has their pros and cons, because you will have different type of things, that oversees your movie. But if you see the good things as well, they already have their proven things, they know what to do, they know what works, and they can actually guide you to make certain adjustments in the movie for them to be able to actually, distribute it in more markets, in more places that might encounter complications if you don't take it under consideration during the production process. So that's a really great, good, pros in this negotiation.
yeah, absolutely. It makes sense. So sell distribution rights early so that you can make money in advance. That sounds super cool. And I'm guessing the last one should be like, getting sponsors for doing product placements inside a movie, correct? I'm just guessing. Oh, it
Yes,
is.
you're
It
so
is.
on point.
Okay.
You're so on point. That was what we talked about before. And as you know, product placement is just including products from companies as a part of the story. And the more embed into that story, the more beneficial is to that story, the more reliable, the most real can be to the story. So you have to really pay attention on those things. But yes, you can get funding and you can support your movie from product placement, which is really helpful to fund the production.
Oh, yeah, you need all the money you can get because it's a business after all, right? So yeah, it makes sense. I would recommend if people are interested in coming and asking questions, feel free to raise your hand. I will be happy to bring you up. We will be starting Q&A in about, let's say, 10 minutes roughly. I just have a very important question which I'm positive you guys need to hear this. But before we go into the next question, a little shout out from my sponsor. Let's take a break and hear what the sponsor has to say.
Fast track your success by becoming a world-class communicator. My name is Jose Ucar. I'm a communication and public speaking coach and the founder of the World Class Communicator program. If you pay close attention to the best communicators and most influential leaders out there, you will notice that they all have three things in common: a winning mindset, communication one-to-one skills, and public speaking. This is precisely how this online training course is laid out. The knowledge I provide in this training will enable you, amongst other things, to talk your way up the business ladder, become the influential leader people look up to, grow your personal brand and your business, deliver memorable and persuasive presentations, create enriching and long-lasting relationships, and much more. So, what do you say? Are you ready to become a world-class communicator? Join us today using this very special 75% off coupon. Just go to worldclass-communicator.com and enter Jason, all in capital letters, JAISON. And I look forward to meeting you very soon.
Thank you, Jose, for that lovely audio recording. I would highly recommend you guys to take advantage of this course because it's super cool. It's super discounted. And yes, I do make a small commission at no extra cost to you. That's how we fund and support my podcast and the expenditure involved. So let's deep dive further. When we had this conversation with you, Claudia, you spoke about the importance of crew members and their respective roles in filmmaking. So, and I know we are a little constrained on time, plus we have a few guests, few speakers on stage who also wants to ask you questions and contribute. So keeping time in mind, would you mind running us by the main people who are involved, who are a part of the crew, and what's their respective role like?
Oh, yes, of course, Jason. Well, when you are going to secure your crew members, you really have to look for main roles, specifically and mostly at the beginning, at the pre-production or even in development. Sometimes it's good to have your key players near to you on that process as well. So one of the main positions is definitely director, and that's a person that is responsible, right, to oversee all the creative and putting everything together to make that universe work in a film. And he's who will bring this script, this story to life, and that's really exciting, right? So the producer is another really important person, and usually the producer comes before the director. It can switch. I think like there are a lot of directors that are producers, that even are actors even in the same movie, which is really incredible, because of all the time consuming and all the information and all the things that you have to accomplish during this movie process. But they are amazing genius that I can say genius because once you switch hats and lines, definitely it's amazing and uniqueness thread to have. So once you think about the producer that usually comes before. He is the one to be responsible for gathering all that financial aspect, that logistical aspect, and it will go into securing the funding, into securing all this, managing the production schedule, of course. In the direction department and the production department, you will have many other crew members that actually come into place to make this process easier, and each of them has like a specific task and a specific roles. I will not go deep on them because we are talking about hundreds of people, but definitely will just mention the head of some departments. So the cinematographer, and also someone that you might know as the DP or director of photography. And that is a visionary, right? So that's a person responsible for capturing that amazing visual look. They will plan along with the director as well how will be the lighting, what would be the camera angles, what would be the type of camera, the lenses, all these things to actually create this amazing atmosphere to make this film feel unique and be pleasant, and it goes along definitely with what you and how you want to tell that story. And other person that comes into these three creative process personas is the production designer. So the production designer is really responsible for designing all the look of the film. It would be really intertwined with the cinematographer and also the director, because he will design all the sets, he will give the costumes the look, the special effects, all the things that come into
Customs, or
visual.
you mean costumes?
Yes, costumes,
Oh,
yes.
okay, okay.
Sorry. Yes, costumes. Totally. So the production designer is really responsible for that. So as you see, these three creative key roles into the movie processing making, they really work hand to hand to be able to create this atmosphere as I mentioned before.
Okay, so
So you
director,
have
okay, I'm sorry, director, producer, and you said DP and production designer. So far we have four.
yes, but I was talking about the creative process. The producer comes in, yes, it can definitely take um an important role into these, but usually the producer will say, yes, try to look for another way to make this possible because this is over budget. So the producer is always thinking about how to make this all enterprise work and to keep everything under progress, under the process, on managing things. So it comes from the mostly logical aspect, right? And the director, the DP, and the production designer usually comes into more on the creative side and how the actual movie will look. Does it make sense?
Yeah, it makes sense. It makes
Yes.
perfect sense. So let's continue further. So who else would be involved in these roles?
Perfect. So we have the screenwriter that we talk about, like comes into the development process, and who do you know it will be in charge of creating the dialogues, all the character arcs, like all the story, the structure of the story is it comes for the screenwriter. Now we have the editor that comes actually in the post production process or stage, and that's who is responsible for cutting, editing, selecting shots. Usually, the editor will work hand to hand with the director to be really on point on how they want to achieve the final edit. And one of the other roles that we definitely need to talk about is sound designer. So that's a really important person. We need a soundtrack, we need sound, we need to the dialogue be heard, and we need those sound effects, which makes the movies and the experience so powerful. And we need music. So that's the person who designed all these overall soundtrack and all this sound mix in the movie. We have the casting director, who is really important because we need a person that allows us to look for the right actors or actresses for the film. And that's the person that will work along with the producer and the director, basically to be able to choose the right leads and the right people, right, to go into the movie production estate and be there and actually give life to those characters in the story. We have the gaffer, who is the head electrician, who is in charge of lighting, and that's a person that will be so key for the cinematographer and the camera department. And we have the key grip as well, like it's really physical support for cameras and light too. So key grip, gaffer, and director of photography, the camera department, all those working really on the tech and gear side of things to make actually the film work and be as a pleasant surprise and entertainment for all of us.
Awesome. That makes a lot of sense. So, is there anybody else left, or is this pretty much the team you require at least to start off with a movie?
Yes, definitely. There's a lot of key positions. You have line producers. You have like a lot of main roles, but just for a glance, a quick glance, those would be kind of key roles into the production side of things. So we can name a lot, and I would have to say this here: there is no role that is not important in a movie production. Everybody in a set, from the beginning to the end, is so important. It doesn't matter what you do inside of this or along this production process. It's everybody just brings something to the table to make this actually happen. I would say like craft service are amazingly needed. They are such wonderful and amazing human beings to be around, and they provide so important things like food and arrange that everything works smoothly. I have to say, every department, everybody that is inside of a movie production, it's so important. Truck drivers, all the drivers, the PAs, all the production department, the AD. AD is a really key role, and I didn't mention that, but AD is an assistant of director who actually runs the set. So once you go to production mode, and the AD will come along into the pre-production process as well, because AD is really a key player on handling the organization, keeping the time, making the call sheets, and organizing that everybody is and everything is in place when and where it needs to be. So that's a really key person in this process.
Absolutely, I totally agree. The person who even brings you a cup of coffee till the very first person who produces and directs and funds, everyone has equal participation to make this thing a huge success. So no efforts go
Yes.
waste. I totally agree with you on that front. So with that note, I wanted to actually discuss a lot of things, but this subject matter is so complex and so vast, like it would be next to impossible to cover everything. What I would recommend that we do is we're gonna have like a part 2 of this, and we're gonna continue this conversation on season 4. Would you like to be on season 4, Claudia, by any chance? Like, be again, and let's discuss and take this ahead.
Yes, I would love to. That would be amazing. Thank you so much. It would be definitely an honor. Again, this is a long conversation, and I think like I'm trying to explain it in a way that if you are new to how to make movies, you become really interested in this process and you get to know how everything is it's made, how everything works. And but I really appreciate it, and I think like yes, this need a second part.
Yeah,
Definitely.
absolutely, absolutely. Because there were a lot of things, other things which I personally wanted to cover as well, which but I think we are running short on time. Okay, so I also want to let you guys know that we will be wrapping season 3. I was planning on having a guest on March 1st, but I kind of chucked that plan. So end of Feb, that means we have one more episode which is going to be live on Feb 22nd, which is next week, and post that we will wrap season 3. I'm going to take a 40 to 45-day break, relax, meditate, sleep as much as possible, because this is a lot of exhaustive work which I do. The success does come with a price. To be at the top 30% is not easy. I had to really slog my ass to make it happen. When it comes to scheduling, it's a pain in the ass. I'm just being real with you. Very challenging. I have been getting a lot of requests over from LinkedIn and other platforms to be featured as a guest. I want to be very vocal and upfront with you. Usually or typically, my shows or the clients who I pick up to be a guest, not clients, but guests who I want to be featured on the show, are just basically invite only. If you do want to be a guest, you're welcome to join the waitlist. The waitlist is IamJDesigns.co, which is my company /guest. You should be able to find this under the event description right at the bottom. Click on that link, send in us your profile. Due to the sheer volume of requests I get, it can take about 4 to 6 months for me to decide like which show to allocate you, which season to allocate it. So I just have like a really big list at this moment which I'm trying to sort out. So I appreciate your love and support, and I appreciate your patience. Let's start with Q&A. I want to welcome Wade to this conversation. Wade, you have been a regular listener along with Thomas. I sincerely applaud you for the support, and thank you so much for being a regular on my show and a speaker. I really appreciate it. I really appreciate the message which you sent me on back channel as well. So that's super cool. I'll be happy to maybe expedite the process and help you out, because he's a close friend of yours. So let's move on. Do you have a question for Claudia, or would you like to comment or contribute to this conversation?
Absolutely. Thank you, Jason. Excuse me. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever anybody is from. This has been a fantastic episode. Hello, Claudia. The question I have for you, is it true, or is my understanding correct as far as when it comes to distribution, that about 2/3 of the films that have been produced out there don't even have distribution, and a lot of films nobody's ever seen or heard of. Is that true?
Yes, thank you so much, Greg. Really happy
Wade,
to have you.
WAD,
Oh,
Wade,
Vid?
Wade.
Oh, wait, sorry, Vid. I thought it was Greg. So, Vid. Um, well, I have to say that you're correctly on point. I don't know exactly the numbers, but I can say that we were talking before distribution, and one of the most hard things to get is to be distributed. And there are many great films which I've seen, couple of them fellow filmmakers, that actually that film goes to a couple of rooms, like they get nationally maybe, and distribute, but never seen international distribution. And that's why many of this effort just goes to a drawer. It can be lost in many ways, and none of us enjoy those productions. So it's really hard to get distributed. Yes, definitely.
Thank you so much. And I don't have a follow up, so I wish everybody all the very best and look forward to hearing and learning more from everybody. Thanks so much. All the
Absolutely,
best.
wait. Absolutely, absolutely. I want to welcome.
Thank you so much, Vade. Oh, sorry. I was just wanted to say thank you, Vade, and thank you for your kind words. Really
He's a
appreciate
super
it.
cool guy. I mean, all my close friends whom you would be listening now on stage are super, super freaking cool. If audience, if you're actually listening to this conversation, please give Wade, Thomas, and Eve, whom you see, who joined our stage on LinkedIn. Please give them a follow because they are super cool people. So much to learn and so much they offer as speakers and contributors to my show. I really applaud and appreciate them. So I want to welcome Thomas from Australia. I am glad that you're getting good rest nowadays, and I'm perfectly okay with you joining the show late, Thomas. No hard feelings, but thank you so much for still making it, even if it's late, because you get the juicy side, when we are just developing and harnessing the conversation. So, based on what you just heard, do you have a question or a comment?
Sure. Thanks, Jason. Hi, Claudia. I was interested in the topic. I love movies, and I love the escape that you get when you watch movies. Like Tom Cruise in Tom Hanks and all the Toms in the world. They seem to make good movies. I can't make a movie because I'm not rich enough. But my question is this: I kind of understand the difference between a producer and a director. And correct me if I'm wrong, director is the person that tells people what to do while they're acting or tells the actors what to do. The producer is the person that stumps up the money. So the producer is the multimillionaire who puts $50 million down to pay for the movie or whatever. My question is, um, does that mean that anyone who's like a multimillionaire can just say, "Oh, I want to make a movie," and then they just started off the idea and the rest is history?
What an interesting
Thanks.
question.
Yes, indeed. Thank you so much, Thomas, for that question, and thank you for being with us today. Really appreciate it. Well, you're right. Yes, the director is the person who actually is in charge to make that script, to put it like into give that guidance, as you said, to the actors and understand how that story will be told, how they want it to be, the feeling, the atmosphere, the universe that you are creating based on the script. Sometimes the script is really nearby the vision of the director, and sometimes the director ends on creating a completely different universe and completely different, not completely different story, but it's based on the story, but the way that he envisions and imagine the story is really different from, or might be different from, the script. Yes, the producer is someone that is responsible for the founding, right? But specifically the executive producer, because the executive producer is the one that gets into the final. They can. I don't know if you have seen on the credits of the movie that you have different producers. So one role to call that person that actually makes the funding happen, and depending on the role, can actually get people who is enrolled. Sometimes you will see in a movie that an executive producer could be another fellow director, or it could be, a really important actor or actress who is actually doing the executive producer for that other movie, and they are not actually in the movie. So the executive producer will help to finance the movie. It doesn't matter if they are bringing the whole funds or they are actually getting the funds, because they already have the connections, or they already have, who to present this, and they will bring these deals as well. It's kind of having like a partner and or an investor in a business, right? So they do that. The main producer will be going to be responsible on managing the day-to-day operations of the production, and those two do not need to be the same person. So usually the executive will stay under financial right role, and the producer and that production department would oversee those specific side of it. As I said, like there's a lot of people, different roles. Even if they are called the same, they might be just by extra title, just mean something completely different.
Yeah. So,
I hope
for
that
example,
I hope that helps. Yes.
yeah. So, for example, some dude called Adam Sandler, the comedian, right? He's got a lot of contacts. He networks well, I would assume. And a lot of the times, I think, and correct me if I'm wrong, he's like the executive producer, because he is kind of senior now. He's probably 52 or whatever, and therefore he kind of, I think, is the executive producer. And like Tom Cruise, he'd be the executive producer. Would that be correct?
Yes, an actor in the movie can be an executive producer as well. And actors that are not in the movie could be executive producers too. So depending on the role of that, you mentioned Adam Sandler. So Adam Sandler has Happy Madison Productions, and
Yeah, sure.
yes. So he's basically really into create comedies, right? That's his genre, and I've seen that he has been switching a little bit more and blending it to other genres as well. So yes, you can see Tom Cruise as well producing his movies and overseeing that. I think like actors are becoming to create their own platforms and projects. You can also think about Fast and Furious as well as many movies in line as a Mission Impossible, let's say for Tom Cruise. So they create this legacy around a franchise, right? Is the right word, around movies, and they actually go and produce those movies. And let me tell you something, this begins usually as in business when you're trying to create opportunities, right? So you have a movie that not everybody will produce that movie because they don't believe in that yet, and sometimes you have to take that role and begin to do that founding, looking for that founding, and begin to create that movie. As you know, as the case of Adam Sandler, that he has his own production company and he actually leads most of the movie that he produced. So that could be a way that an actor can actually end up producing their movies and being producer, and being writer and being actor, being involved in different roles for their movies. Other person and actor that I think like do this really amazingly well is Tyler Perry too, and he has been able to actually create his own studios and a
Oh,
big
Medea?
studios. Yes. So
Medea?
he began with that. Yes. But look, that's a franchise too, And he began to do that. Then he was producing his own movies. He was writing his own movies. He actually made a comment that he will go, I just saw it recently, that he would just step out, go to a different roles. Remember that I mentioned that sometimes when you have different roles, you have to separate your hats, right? So he mentions that he will take I don't know if it's 2 weeks off or 2 months. I'm not sure about the length of time, but he will go to a place specifically to write. And in that moment, he's just a writer. And after that, he will send it to begin those other process. And now when he comes back, now he could be I'm not saying that that's the right order that he does it, but just to give an example, it could switch for that writer to now being a producer. And once he gets into the set, he's now the lead actor, and sometimes even it can be the director, because in some cases you see that they have roles in the movie and they can actually be directing their movie. It's complicated, but it can be done. Definitely.
Thank you. No more follow-up questions. That's really interesting.
Well, thank you so much, Thomas. So lovely to have you on stage and hear from you, and I love all your questions. I want to actually welcome a special person. Her name is Eve, and she's a part of. She's not only a combat medic of our United States Air Force, and I have been a regular listener to some of the episodes she done with the Veterans Club, which I'm a big fan of. I follow a lot of these individuals. So, Eve, welcome to my podcast. So lovely to see you. Do you have a question for Claudia, or would you like to contribute?
Hello, good afternoon, Jason and Claudia. Thank you so much for being here and for the invitation to this awesome event. I always learn a little bit more and or get affirmation for clarification from different things that I've already tried to learn from the entertainment business. So I'm always more than appreciative to hear what experts and professionals have to say about this field, since I'm still maneuvering through the space. But Jason is correct. I host a podcast on several cross platforms right now. It's called the Powwow Coffee Meet, and it's for veterans and in support of veterans for in I would say the best form to say is to be able to show camaraderie, support, and the goal is to try and keep veterans out of homelessness and suicidal thought processes. But thank you so much for being here. My stance here is for support, and more than anything, I think that I would like to know if the show is on replay, and I think the only other question that I would have or comment would be that anybody can make a movie, but it's just making a good movie, right?
Yes, thank you so much, Eve. Thank you so much for sharing with us as well. I just want to say thank you again for all the amazing support that you're giving veterans as well. Thank you so much for that. You just share a beautiful way to support them, and that's really, really admirable. So thank you, thank you, thank you. Well, I have to say, with that comment, yes, everybody can make a movie. I would say that a good movie is different, and it might not be different. This is why I mentioned this. We all, even the most amazing filmmakers, will begin with short films and, telling the stories in a way that might not be the way that they do it nowadays, right? Once they are a really experiment director. So, one of the things that I would say that I love about technology now is that it allows you to create with your cell phone, to create and tell stories in a powerful way without having to invest that much. And when you're trying to create a career because you love this, because you love to share story, because you love to share with people, to inspire, to entertain, you know, I think like you can do it without thinking that you will do the most amazing movie. I know that we all want to have that, a really great movie, but just the right thing to do is just begin. And if you have that on your heart and you want to tell stories, to share, just beginning to do it, it's powerful. And when you're doing it with a crew that might support you, I've seen a lot of directors that will begin with a crew that will be ending when they are, Academy Awards director, and they will still work alone. So when you are beginning, you might surround yourself with really with people that believes in you and in the visual and the way that you want to tell stories. Especially, I'm talking for directors, right? And that's the power of it. When you want to share a story, if you're writing and spending, it's really powerful. And just beginning to do it, that would be the advice that I can give to everybody that wants to do. You don't need to specifically go to school to begin to experience things doing and being a filmmaker. Yes, you need knowledge, but nowadays we have a lot of information, and there are a lot of great directors and great writers that might not have like a college background behind them. For me, it's just the will to do it. And if you put your heart in it and you practice enough, you might be, the next big storyteller. And your piece of art, could be more than that. It could be something that it will be there, and will prevail during time. And that's why I think like stories are so important to bring us that legacy. Thank you so much, Eve, for that comment. I really resonate with it.
Thank you. I just say that because I've been in a lot of rooms in Clubhouse and around a lot of directors and different people who have given me a lot of guidance because they think that a lot of the stuff that I do is, worthy, noteworthy of making some films. And so I get encouraged a lot by you guys to look at all the work because I'm a photographer, videographer. I always do that. It's always been a hobby of mine since I was in the military, so I have tons of footage. If anything
Oh,
else,
that
right?
was
One day I'll.
wonderful. Yes, congratulations on that. That's something that you have that unique vision. So if you have
Yeah.
that and that's something that you love, just continue doing it. And I'm pretty sure that you might have stories that are worth to tell. So I really, really encourage you to do that as well. I have to say that yes, are ideas that are doable, that yes, there are ideas that might be sticky than others. It's how we were talking about before, like business. Not everything or every product might, be out. But I have to say that all the ideas and the stories are already told, right? So what you have to have is like an idea and look the way to create something to blend it, to look at into a different perspective that might create something unique and new and have like a new perspective that can be something that people find interesting to watch and to to have that fan base that really get excited with that story.
Awesome.
Thank you.
Awesome. Go ahead, Eve.
That's great advice. Thank you so much for that. I think more than anything, people just resonate with things. It comes from the heart, and I think that that's what I can depict from what you're explaining here about the entertainment film industry and how to be able to go through the processes. And I think it's super important to understand all those processes because you can get lost and it's very easy to just make something and not make anything out of it. So I think that that's one of the important things that I've looked at and I've honed into, and I continue getting affirmation, especially with the conversation that you had earlier about all the different people that get involved because it is a process. And if you want to make something good, then you should really allow other people to collaborate with you. So thank you.
Awesome. Awesome, Eve. I want to thank you for your service also, and I appreciate the question. And the comment and what you have contributed and shared, and I really love the thing which you're doing to support veterans, helping the
Thank
community. That is
thank you
super.
for the support.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for being here. On that note, we are in the process of wrapping up the show, so I want to give Claudia the opportunity to promote. What would be the call to action for today, Claudia, for this episode?
Thank you so much, Jason. I just want to again say thank you. It's really an honor to have been here. And thank you so much for your wonderful questions and comments. I really appreciate that. Well, I have to say that one of the call to actions, as you said, we are putting together marketing and filmmaker. And I think, like, based on what we talked today, and also what that it was brought, right? So many of the films are not being seen or are not getting distributed because sometimes we don't have the right strategies, or we don't know if it's the beginning of the movie and the earlier stages, how to put together the right package to present. It could be on both ends. So marketing plays a really, really important side of it, and that's why we are creating something that blends all, and it's movie brand box. But today I would definitely encourage you, we have like a link on top that is Claudia BST. It stands for visual storyteller, and you can go to claudiavst.com. There you will find link to a calendar, and I'm more than happy to respond any question that you have and any guidance that you might need. I'm more than happy to connect with you if you're listening and you have a couple of questions extra to ask. So that would be my gift for today. And I really encourage all the audience that has projects or that wants to create something in the film and wants the story to be told.
It is super cool. So I have this link under the event comments. If you want to find the event comments, if you're on LinkedIn, click on the three dots on the top, and you should be able to find event details. Scroll down, you should be able to find Claudia's website. This is like a Calendly link. So please reach out to her. But at the same time, I'd like you to be respectful to her time because she's also in the process of already working on a movie. So if you have something which can be answered over Google, just use Google or Chat GPT to do that. If you have something a little more complex, please reach out to Claudia and you would be able to get those specifics. Okay. I also want to let you know that it would be very challenging for you to Google Claudia. She is not on Google. Okay. She's a very secretive person and she likes to keep things to herself. So don't Google her. You would not be able to find anything. Nothing on LinkedIn also. So just approach and use the medium which we have suggested, and you should be directed to the right place. So, do you have any final thoughts, Claudia, before we wrap things up? Any one last takeaway before we wrap this conversation?
No, I'm just laughing on that statement, Jason.
It's true. I'm
Oh,
not
no, no, no.
lying. I'm not
Yes.
lying.
Oh, my
You can't
goodness.
find anything about her. Okay. Some people are
Oh,
like that,
no.
it's
Well,
just I'm just saying.
well, I'm just laughing. So, yes, I have to say that if you have a story in your heart, and this is my advice to you, begin to work on it, begin to make it happen. Yes, as if chair, take under consideration the right process from the beginning. I think it's really important when you are trying to get get your film made, and it's important to follow it, but most importantly, follow your heart, really be connect with the story that you want to tell, and most importantly, believe in you, believe in what you have to give, because your voice and your story needs to be told, and who better person to tell it, to share it with all of us than you. So don't be afraid, just begin the first step and begin to tell stories, and that's how you make this amazing profession happens, and be fruitful for you when you just begin to take that and to begin to give the first steps.
Awesome. Thank you so
And
much for that, Claudia.
thank
That
you,
is super
Jason.
cool. That is super, super cool. I want to thank all the 8 listeners left, surviving this extended podcast we had. Thank you, Thomas, Daniel, Amir, Arpit, Jane. No, scientist, not so nice to see you. Ted, Puneet, and my good friend Frankie. Thank you so much for your love and support, and everyone who is also on stage. Without your love and support, this podcast wouldn't be a success. I would not be in a position to do what I'm doing right now. So thank you so much. So on that note, we're gonna wrap things up. You take care of yourself. See you next week. To tomorrow, next week would be my last episode. It's about color. I would recommend you to go to the feature section of my LinkedIn profile, and you should be able to find that event. That's the last event, with Peggy, and we're going to speak about color, the psychology behind it, color forecasting, how it works, color trends, stuff like that. Take care. Have a lovely morning, evening, afternoon, wherever you're in the world.
Thank you again. Have a wonderful day. Thank you for joining us. And thank you again, Jason, for this wonderful episode. Thank you.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. You guys have a great day, evening. Be blessed.
Thank you all. Happy to connect and listen to you as well.